Hi, Math 256, welcome back. And this is going to be your preview video for M15 and M16. We are really nearing the end of the semester, and with the Thanksgiving holiday, um, I wanted to make sure you have all the information you need so you can start prepping for that final exam. So the one day we have this week is about decimals. The good thing is, you know decimals. You like decimals probably even more than fractions, although you're really solidifying your fraction understanding, which is wonderful. So I have rated this week yellow, mostly because there's just a lot of information and there's only one day. Some students still struggle with rounding decimals. Remembering those place values can be challenging for some depending on your experience, but remember, the more we use mathematical language, the easier it will be for us to remember those place values, which means the easier it is rounding and doing all those operations. So, what are decimals? We'll talk about that. We'll break down our decimals. Um, and so you can see expanded form right there. Notice that I'm writing the decimal place value as fractions. So this would be different for you, but I'm telling you it's a great practice. So when you hear tenths, you think of that fraction, which is also a decimal. So reading and writing decimals, we need to make sure we read decimals mathematically. So for example, instead of what you probably read this as, and probably a lot of your teachers read this as, is 0.234. That doesn't have mathematical meaning. A point is something in geometry. So we really want to say 234 thousandths because that's what it's really meaning mathematically. And then notice that it sounds just like 234, but we add that thousandth on at the end because that's the place value that that last digit is located in. So when you go through this lesson, we'll practice this. We'll practice reading, writing, speaking, all of those things. And then we're going to go through a decimal booklet. And we use color coding to help us really understand the math behind it. So we're going to use orange, yellow, and blue. If you're using your iPad, you have all those at your fingertips. If you printed this out, then you would need those highlighters. But you're going to go through this and you'll see what each color represents and you'll make sense of the place values. So that will really help you understand. And later when you're testing or when you're thinking about it, you'll connect those colors with the place value, which can help with rounding and all of those things. So you'll be going through that decimal booklet. You'll be talking about rounding, why rounding rules exist, and how we can look at a number line to help us round things, which is an interesting new procedure for you. We're going to talk about ordering decimals and what that would mean. We're going to talk about practical rounding because that might break rounding rules. And then you'll just work on your assignments and check Canvas for due dates and your exit ticket. We will be touching on decimal operations, but not until the first day in M16. So in M16, I have rated this red because I have noticed that a lot of students struggle with operations on decimals, especially estimating them and seeing them, the connection to fractions. So adding decimals, you can see how we're going to connect our decimals to fractions because the more connections we make to those concepts in our brain, the easier it is for us to problem solve later. So we'll talk about subtracting decimals as well. And then we're going to really look into multiplication and division. And powers of 10 are extremely important in operations on decimals. specifically multiplying and dividing decimals. So we shouldn't be guessing where things go. We should really be thinking things through. So this connection between fractions and decimals, specifically with decimal operations, is really amazing. So the last thing we'll do on this day is we will talk about tape diagrams and what tape diagrams look like and how we can apply that to our new concept that we're going to look at, which is percents. So as always, you have Canvas assignments and an exit ticket, and then the final class day will be on percents, and we'll just have a slight taste of algebra. So I've rated this yellow. Some students struggle with tape diagrams or percents, and algebraic thinking can be challenging depending on your experiences. But we're really going to connect fractions, decimals, and percents, and really look at our thinking and why it's important that we connect all three of those things. So you'll have an assignment where you're either given the fraction, the decimal, or the percent, and you'll give the other two versions, but mostly explain how those other versions work and where they come from. Then we'll talk about applications of percents. So here is an application problem that you can solve with a tape diagram. So Mark has 52 candy bars to sell. He sold 75% of the bars. How many did he sell? A lot of you do procedural, but prior to that, we really want to think about things, or maybe even alternatively to that, we want to draw a picture. So we can get answers to fairly complicated math problems through tape diagrams. Then, if we have time, we'll touch on algebraic thinking and making sense of variables and what they mean and how we can understand them. Some of you might be thinking, oh, I'm not teaching the middle school grades, so I don't need to worry about algebra. Remember, all the things that we set up in foundational skills lead us to a quick transition to algebra instead of making it this horrible thing. We'll touch on an equation choice board, and then finally your last Canvas assignments and your exit ticket. So that's it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in class.